I think at the core of what we're doing is, with the festival and in general, is creating more space for people to just hear music. Most people buy tickets to go see people that are famous, but I think to just go and experience music and just like the environment around it. Lizzo was great before she was famous.
Right, yeah.
Right? And everybody that came to that show was just like, she's amazing.
Yeah.
And the other artists. But there's so many people still down where Lizzo was that are also great.
Yeah.
Like, I think sometimes when people are talented, they start feeling entitled to success or something. It's nice having a 10-year-old daughter. I get permission to go to kids' movies, and I get permission to listen to pop music. It's great.
But yeah,
cool.
Man, I'm excited to have you on.
Yeah,
Mr.
I'm
Eric
excited
Gilbert.
to chat with you some more.
Yeah, I was racking my brain to think about, because we corresponded so much, or not so much, but as much as any band does with you when I first moved to Boise like 12 years ago.
Okay.
But I was like, did I ever meet him in person?
I know, that's what I was trying to figure out.
And if I did, it was probably wasted at a show.
Or just, in passing. Yeah, exactly.
And then I've like seen you around and stuff, but yeah, I couldn't quite put it together, but
that's kind of the same.
Yeah.
With Fires and Friends, were you the one that emailed the most then? Yeah. Sometimes I lose track of.
Yeah, because obviously Ukiah.
Yeah.
Matt Coate.
Oh yeah.
Because he used to play with Ukiah, so that's how I found Matt. And
Matt was like Grand Falconer and all of those ones back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, I found Ukiah like right after all that. It's when I moved here.
Cool.
I was kind of like an outsider. But
where did you move from?
Up from San Diego.
Oh, cool.
And I had started the band down there.
Huh.
I'm from Pennsylvania. Huh. And so like meeting Ukiah was really crucial in just like getting into the scene a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
Because the rest of us, like two of us had come up from San Diego. And the other kid that we played with was kind of out of the loop. So
what was the catalyst for you moving here?
The guy that was playing with me down there, I worked for. And he owned a business, and he's like, I'm moving my business up to Boise, moving in with this kid, Kerry Judd, that we knew. And then I was just like, he's like, you can stay down here, work for remote, or you can come up with. And we were struggling down there, like musically. It's a way different scene.
Yeah, my old band we used to tour through there a decent amount.
Yeah.
And I can imagine. It seemed like some interesting pockets, but it's a town like that. It's just spread out, right? I remember there was a cool venue kind of on the west side that we played a few times. Played with.
You know the name?
Oh, I can't remember it, but I remember it was a side project of spacing his name, the guy from Pinback.
Okay.
It was like a Batman themed band. I don't know.
Oh, no.
It seems like he's just like super. They do all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah.
I remember that spot. And then there was a place called, what's it, Pink Elephant or Pink Bar?
There is it's in the north. It's in North Park.
Bar Pink.
Pink.
Yes,
that's the one. Did I play there or did I just go to shows there? I can't remember.
Yeah. Anyways, it was a strange, and I've been through it, spell like Casbah, place like that too. But yeah, it does seem like kind of a fracture. Like it's just hard to get a read on what being a local band there would be like. So yeah,
it's like that's the nice thing about Boise being a small enough town that kind of everyone goes the same area anyway.
Yep. Exactly.
And so like in San Diego, it's like wherever you went, you kind of stayed. Yep. So if you go to the beach area, like that's where you're there all night. You Uber there, you're not going to go somewhere else. And most of my friends were beach kids and surfers and stuff. And so then to try, like the only places we're working local shows were North Park. Yeah. So they're like, hey, do you want to come to North Park? They're like, no.
That's the smaller venues because we played the Belly Up in Solano Beach. Yep. But like as a local band, like that's not really like where you go to see the local up and coming bands, really. But it is on the beach. Nice, yeah.
And there's a couple of venues on the beach, but they were more like cover band spots.
Geared more to that kind of crowd.
Yeah, and so it's just tough to really, if you have a big friend group and get enough people out, but then we're new, so we kind of were shitty at the time, and we got way better over time. But
what was your I think it's a good backdrop to the conversation in general. What was your perspective when you were first moving to Boise? Like, did you think there was a music scene here? Had you heard anything about it ahead of time? Or?
I had only read an article when I was picking cities to move to when I came. So I was in Alabama, and I was like, I want to go somewhere with music. I want to chase. And I knew nothing. I came from church culture, and I had just started Googling like best cities to go to for music, and obviously LA, New York. I was like, I don't think I'll fit in there. Nashville. I picked San Diego because I knew somebody here. I was like, it's close to LA. We'll get up there. I didn't really understand the dynamic, but Boise came up on the list. So I was like, I've never even heard of this place.
Yeah, interesting. That's
but
cool.
I hadn't gone, but that was my only like reference. But when I got here, I lived out in 5 Mile and like Overland area and just started practicing. And then we'd come down here every once in a while to play.
Yeah.
But I didn't start getting downtown until we started playing a lot. And then
I grew up 5 Mile and McMillan essentially.
Yeah.
So go over by where Hewlett Packard is, and growing up, like obviously I grew up in Boise, but I really just grew up in suburbia anywhere.
Yeah.
Like I didn't come downtown a ton. And
well, especially back like growing up. I mean, it's like has to be super rural. And
kind of there was a lot more open space around that area. But there was, I know, and then I was based in high school in the 90s, and like there was obviously it was this kind of first wave of the scene kind of doing well around here, but I wasn't really paying attention to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw Built to Spill play across the street from the Record Exchange and was sort of getting into them, but like it's interesting, reflect back on like just how clueless I was. But,
I actually never heard of them until I moved here.
Yeah.
They're like, they're our most famous act out of Boise. I was like, I still don't know.
Yeah. But I love being in a small city, especially traveling a lot. Like I love cities, but I also like smaller communities, and Boise's just like a good mix of, like you said, it's centralized, so everyone comes to the same area, which is nice. So it's a lot easier to sort of like feel the dynamics of the town, And so.
Yeah, I mean, and I think so because I mean, obviously, you have a lot we have a lot, but especially because of like building out Treefort. Now we have the hall, and now like the Shriners playing more, and so we're getting more and more venues. So then the more stuff is happening, I feel like it's like when you have one bar that there's nothing else around. It's tough to like build something.
Exactly.
But so bringing in other bars, even though it feels like competition, actually ends up being good for everyone.
1000%. Venue density is super important. That's one thing. So, pre-starting Treefort, I played like South by Southwest and CMJ in New York and Music Fest Northwest, and these other multi-venue festivals. And I still go to them. I love them. But most of them, you have to like Uber between venues. Like Boise is downtown itself. It's dense, and most of the there's some other venues in the area that aren't in that general core that are great, but it lends itself really well to this multi-venue festival style because everything is so walkable, and it's cool.
Have to Uber in South by Southwest to get.
I mean, you essentially have, but I went to Pop Montreal in Montreal last year, and it's a little more spread out. It was literally almost every single venue you had to jump in an Uber to get to the next one, and I just realized how spoiled we are. And then I Music Fest Northwest in Portland, which is a multi-venue festival that ran 5 to 8 years. I don't know, but there was venues. There was pockets of venues, but they were on both sides of the river, and it was just sort of like it's like you said, kind of being in San Diego. You just kind of commit to one neighborhood, and you're less likely to go to everything else, right? Which I get it's cool, but and South by it's it's just so it's there are things you can go all the way to, but if you were trying to get to some, that's a long walk.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big city.
Yeah, exactly. So So anyways, to your point, and then I agree, as now with these new venues in place, and then like places like Realms and other, people, Reef is bringing music back, and it's all of a sudden like there's this like density, and some people think of it as like I said, healthy, friendly competition actually drives the market.
Yeah.
And for the consumer, they're like more like, hey, let's go downtown. There's a bunch of options.
Right. Like, if I'm going just for one music act, I'm like, there's nothing else going on.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, that's my struggle with going out to like the Revolution for a show. Well, the venue sucks anyway. But even if I wanted to go to, what's that venue?
Visual Arts Collective.
Yeah.
Which I love.
But that's actually close to my house, so I'll pop down there. Because I go up Orchard, but.
So.
What's going on?
That's the one thing. And so Sam from Visual Arts Collective is, in fact, last year he helped run this venue during Treefort, and he's been involved with the festival ever since the beginning. But I used to do sound there when I first moved here, and I just love the core of what Sam's doing at Visual Arts Collective, but it is just far enough away, It's
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, I don't know, I guess maybe now that I go out to Meridian a lot, and then go to so I live up Orchard, so it's really just down the way to there. It's probably about the same distance to get downtown or to the Visual Arts Collective. So, and then if I'm riding bike, if it's seasonal, then it's just like I'll pop down the Greenbelt, you get downtown, which isn't bad. But there's another venue right by. it's a bar, but then they have musical acts. Ironwood Social.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And they have more. I don't know how to explain it. Like we used to play, or we played there once or twice way back.
They seem a little more like country focused. Well, it used to be a place called Shorty's. Like when I was growing up,
that's
like,
when I played.
my parents would go down there and dance, like country dancing and stuff. Yeah, exactly.
There was I helped out like doing video for a charity out there, and they brought in this like cover band, but they had everything together, like lights, saxophone players, like sound, everything dialed in. And I was like, oh man, I forgot about this venue.
Yeah.
But yeah, if somebody was be like, hey, I'm doing a show out here, I'm like, gotta Uber the whole way out there. There's nothing else going on, you know.
I will say, and I'm very proponent of the density and being, but it is also great. I'm glad there's more venues kind of developing. Even I think there's a couple in Meridian now, and you know, it's great as far as like entry points into the music scene for folks. Plus, it's like a big enough valley, like bands could play a Meridian venue and it wouldn't necessarily hurt their Boise draw.
Oh yeah,
it's like
it's a whole different crowd.
It's a whole different crowd, you know.
Yeah, I have a friend that owns a bar out there, and it was a struggle at first to get anyone from Boise to go out there. It's like you only have your local Meridian people, but there was one bar that stayed open until 2 or something. Yeah, and now there's I think 4 or 5. So. Cool.
CUNA has a few, and
I've never actually been to bars out there.
Me neither. It's crazy. I rarely. I mean, I even like grow up that way. I rarely head out. What's up?
What did you guys have last night?
These guys throw like a variety of events. It's pretty reggaeton focused.
Okay.
But
at the hall, right over here.
Yeah, it was great. A lot of people out. And,
I have a bunch of friends that only come down for reggaeton night. So like going to the Treefort Hall, and I'm just like, wait, what?
Exactly.
What's going on?
Totally. It's cool. It's fun.
Man, so the first time was last Treefort was when you opened, right?
Yeah, we barely got it open in time.
So we're sitting in like the green room for one of them. Yeah. But I think Jeremy probably let it slip that it was opening like a month before. And I was just like, wait, what? And he's like, no, a whole venue. I was like, what? I was like, I thought they were just redoing the movie theater and stuff. You know, I had no idea. And so when I went there like this year, like, I was on a bunch of mushrooms, walked in, and I was like, holy shit. Totally. This place is so dope.
It's funny because outside, we were talking about this last night too. It's like, it's a little like it's a little unassuming on the outside, but then you open it up, it's all like, what? This is like, what is this place?
Yeah, and I mean, like the lighting, cool. I remember seeing some, I mean, it's just some band I don't remember, but just like seeing the light on each individual artist or each like individual person in the band, I was like, man, they look like fucking rock stars. Yeah.
Totally. It's been fun.
And then upstairs open and stuff.
Yeah. And pretty cool, just like from, you know, I also love the storyline, but the narrative around the fact that it was an Office Depot, so like a big box store that we converted into an art space, and in the downtown core, you know, and it's funny, like our team obviously put a lot of attention into building it and how it was designed, but it sort of exceeded even our expectations. You know, it's like you can do you know, be in a band till you can relate to this. You like bust your ass, do all these things, and it doesn't always come, you know, find the outcome you're seeking. So so far we've been really pleased with how it's been functioning, and artists have been really excited about it. And I mean, obviously you have like a great you know, like having shower facilities for artists and stuff like that, laundry and really laundry. Nice. And I still haven't figured out in life how to get to like putting in so much effort into something and losing your expectation over it. And I mean, it's like, it feels like impossible, because it's like when you put in that much work, it's like you have to have expectation. And then if it doesn't go your way, it's just such a bummer. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like touring kind of took that, like, I don't know. I guess when I entered the music world in general, I entered it from like, I just wanted to, my wife, I think we were married. Yeah, we were married by then. She's a great musician, and I was just like trying really hard, and I just wanted to play one show. Like I just like, you know, I just wanted the experience of playing one show. And so they're a little bit on the music side. I feel like it's been gravy ever since. And so like, I think my perspective of that's always been like, it's all been bonus. So when I was touring and stuff, I don't know. I just got used to rolling with the punches and just realized you can only do so much, but like at least feel good about yourself if you did everything you could to make it go the way you wanted to, right? Yeah. But then I don't know. I just said, for whatever reason, especially with touring, I just started embracing it as just a journey and an experience, and like just enjoying even the not great things as just like fascinating. You know, I don't know. So it really helped me perspective wise when we started the festival and stuff, of like, it's just being able to roll with punches, and I don't know.
How many years did it take you to learn to enjoy the shitty parts?
I entered, like I said, I kind of entered it really embracing that. I was in some other bands before with some musicians who, similarly, just that didn't come easy for them, or they had different like high expectations.
Yeah.
So I think just having low expectations was kind of helpful.
Yeah.
Like especially because I came in as pretty untalented, I think, so it kind of helped me just like. So it's just sort of, I was it was a little bit of a punk rock philosophy of just like, I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna make it happen. But I also realized that I don't like. I think sometimes when people are talented, or they've been told they're talented, or they measure up, they start feeling entitled to success or something,
sure.
Right? So I think there was a degree for me that was like, I don't deserve any of this, so I'm gonna enjoy every parts of it. I guess.
I think that might have been that might have been part of my problem because, and this is the problem being. I grew up in such a small town, so then you're like, if you're the most talented one in that small town, they're like, oh yeah, you should totally be like. You should play rock and roll. You're gonna make it. I'm like, I am gonna make it. You're like, what? Why is this not working out? Yeah. I don't know. I've been doing photo video now for a couple of years. I went full time last year, and God, I keep telling myself enjoy the process, but I really still haven't learned to enjoy it when it sucks.
When it sucks,
because I'll enjoy like a win. I'm like, hell yeah, it's finally starting to click, and then like a week later, it just falls apart or something, and I'm just like, fuck this. I'm ready to get out.
Totally. I've been talking with some classes recently, and the more I think about it too, I think there's this assumption, especially when you were young, that, and then we get to a point where like there's just an assumption that something's going to finally break, and then life's going to be easy. And I think I just realized that's actually not the case ever. Like life's always going to have ups and downs, right? And so I think if like once again trust in the like process, and so I think that's the other thing is like definitely have bad days, but it's sort of just like, well, wake up tomorrow. It'll probably be better,
Yeah.
Does that make sense? But a lot of people like feel the weight of like the setbacks as if they're alone in that. But like I like to say, like everyone's body is fucked up. Everyone's fucking life has bad days. Like it's really hard not to feel like like I'm singularly struggling. I guess
that is a thing that I have noticed. Everyone is like, if you allow yourself to, you're like, I'm the only one who feels this thing. It doesn't matter what the thing is, whether you're dealing with a mental disorder or you're dealing with physical disorders or work pressures. You're like, I'm the only one who understands. Like, no, you're not.
Actually, everybody. Well, I think that's one of the downsides of social media. Is it most people get these glimpses into everyone's lives. It's just what the positive sides of folks want to show. So they think successful people are just cruising when that's never. I don't think that's really the case either. Everyone, I've met a lot of people now, and like everyone has struggles, so I don't know. That's kind of, I guess, core of my just like process, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I guess for you it'd have to be. But
it's the same thing of not letting the successes like over. I guess I'm just kind of fairly calm within that. Like I enjoy those things, but I'm also not like, yes, I've made it, and now I'm just gonna, because then the next day you'll be disappointed when that's not the case.
Do you know Gary Vee? He's like he's like a social media but like business dude. Gives a lot of.
Is he the Shark Tank guy?
No. He does. He does a lot. He has a media company, but he's like really, really singular focus, going to be successful. But he preaches a lot of positivity, but also realism.
Yeah,
and so he preaches. Like no expectations. Like the key to happiness is to have zero expectation on your outcome. And then the other thing that he talks about, he's like, I don't let positives or negatives really affect it. I stays in the middle. So if I have a massive win, he's like, cool, and keeps moving on. But then he has a massive failure. He's like, cool.
Exactly.
And I haven't learned that because I'm more of like this kind of guy.
Totally. Because that's the thing is you're gonna have both, and that's the other weird thing. There's certainly like there's plans with what we do, but like I feel like I made a pivot point in my life when I was an engineering student. I was like, good at math and stuff, and thought I might go that route because it was a good job. But I just made a pivot when I was in my early 20s. I was just like, actually, I think I have time. I'm just going to pursue what I love, and so I think for me, it wasn't like I'm going to go on tour and I'm eventually going to start my own festival, and own a venue. Like all this stuff has sort of like happened, but it wasn't part of even starting the festival. Like we've been very year to year. It wasn't like okay here, or even all the forts, like all those things we just let organically develop. There was no like master plan,
10-year plan.
Yeah, exactly. As much as like I think it's I'm sure there's some good arguments for planning, but for me it's been more about once again just trusting the process and like just like and staying true to like just as long as it's fun and I'm enjoying it and it's feeding me, then I guess keep going. But I don't know. Does that make sense a little bit? And just responding, like I think even with the festival, how it's developed, we've just responded to what, the inputs, outputs of it and evolved with it, as opposed to, you can get real protective about your plans. Like, if you lay out these big plans, it's really hard when they go the wrong direction, This
is like my baby, so I have to
my
do
baby. It's got to
way.
be this way. Yeah, exactly. Oh. So I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like I'll hear advice from both camps, because like if you listen to just certain successful, I could have another person on be like, what you need to do is you have to calculate, you have to have this, and I think for that type of person it works, and then for your type of person this works. And I think I feel myself leaning into more of a go with the flow, like just listening to, where I'm supposed to be, like getting in tune with life or whatever.
Totally. Just depends on what your goals are, right? Like that's what's funny too, is like for me, my goals are relatively simple. I guess I don't really think about them, but it's just like enjoy my life.
Yeah.
And like put food on the table for my family, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. Maybe it gets pretty esoteric. But
I guess how successful you are depends on what kind of food.
Yeah. But like, I think once again, coming out of touring, like it was like sleeping on floors and like scrounging for scraps. And I was having the time of my life. Like I loved it. Like there was, it's like, I think that kind of taught me like even like there's happiness within, you can find happiness in no matter what your circumstances are. Right.
Yeah.
Now I agree outside circumstances can have positive like help.
Right.
But I think if you rely on outside circumstances for your own like well-being, you'll get disappointed more often than not.
I mean, I guess I don't know. That's why if you go to like a country that doesn't have a lot and you go into these little villages, I mean, I've been to Haiti and found people are just so happy and they're wash themselves in the river and,
Exactly. So it's been interesting too, as more things, physical quote unquote successes have manifested themselves around me though, but it's like, but still not that, I'm not attached to it. Like I care about it. I want to fight for it. I want to make it work, but I don't know. Call me tomorrow. I might be in a worse mood about it. No.
It's gonna call you on a good day.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was actually worried. I was like, man, what if he's a football guy? Isn't it the Super Bowl today?
No, it's not. I am a football guy, but it's next Sunday.
I'm not a football guy. So then I just all of a sudden thought, I was like, oh fuck, we might like this might not work, or
Well, actually today I was like, I got a lot to do. I was like, man, I wonder if next Sunday work for him. Like, no, this is the Super Bowl, so I can't.
When I'm gonna leave after next Sunday, I'm going to Scottsdale for 6 weeks. So I was like, man, if I can get him in before, then I'll get it edited, and then I'll have some, put some clips out or something for you. But not that I was. What was I gonna ask you? Oh, just so I moved here in 2000. I want to say 12. So it's been 12 years, and Treefort was already going. When did you
it was
start?
March 2012 was the first one. So you must have just moved here right after that.
So I didn't go to the first one. I think we played the next year, but I remember because we practiced for a while. We're like ready to start a show or like play shows, and I just remember somebody being like, Eric Gilbert is the person to contact. He's like the guy. Somehow I got your email, I think from Ukai or something. He's like, email him. And so that's when we first started like just trying to play the Neurologs or whatever. And we played a couple of plenty of other shows, but the biggest one I feel like we ever played was, we played Treefort. It must have been 13. We played the District, and that was awesome. But we'd already been playing for a while. But there was a day that you had emailed me, and we hadn't practiced in like 2 weeks. And we were supposed to practice on like this Wednesday night, and it was Tuesday, and you're like, hey, I need an opener for Hot Shell Ray at the Knitting Factory. I was like, oh shit. And like at the time they were really big. Yeah. And we're like, dude, we need to practice. And I was like, we'll just do
it.
Yeah, but
Nice.
I was like, and that was the first like bigger show that we played because they were sold out at the Mint or something.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that was fun.
Wow, it's a long time ago.
It was a very long time ago. But because we kind of ended it. Ukiah and Matt both got full-time gigs playing. Like I think he went with Youth Lagoon, and Matt started playing somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I was burnt out on music, and I was like, nah, I'm not finding 2 new members. And so that was, I don't know, a couple years in here.
Cool.
But
cool.
then I finally got back into music and art and shit.
Yeah.
It took me a
while.
Bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I stopped playing for a few years, and during the pandemic started playing with some guys again. And I wasn't necessarily yearning for it, but it's been nice to be back. You know? So it's cool.
I feel like, speaking of no expectation, I feel like when I was playing in Fires and Fans, I had a lot of expectation. Like, we're gonna do this thing. And now that I'm playing, because I play with Jeremy's band, Gypsy Moonrise, and then I've been starting to make some music with a buddy of mine. Cool. And it feels like so like no pressure. We're so just nice. Like, are we gonna have fun? Exactly. Are we gonna go just have a good time? You know? Yeah. I definitely, with my old band, had, there was more expectations baked in and effort being put in, and that had its own benefit. But I agree, now I'm just like, just in it for the ride. It's great. And it's like, it's the best. So when you started, when you have an idea to start a music festival, it's like, that has to be a new adventure, and then did you do it? Did you get like a couple people? We're like, okay, we're going to play in this thing. Or do you just like pull it all out by yourself? Like, no, it was, so the general, like, what had happened is I was in between tours, was pretty active, trying to, we had slept on so many floors at that point around the country that it was suddenly like returning the favor a lot, taking, helping people find shows in Boise. So I was getting active in the local scene, 2011. In fact, that year, my wife and I were both like, we were on a label out of Portland, and we were like, we had moved down to Boise in 2009, but we're still touring pretty heavily. And it was really, to be honest with you, I wasn't sold that Boise was where I wanted to be, or it could be the town that I wanted to be in, right? Sure. So in 2011, we were like, well, let's just lean in. Let's see, we knew we were going to tour less. So we were just, I was leaning in. I was doing Sound at the Vac. I'd helped set up a bunch of little series and shows and stuff. And then Radio Boise came on. I started doing a radio show at Radio Boise. And then that summer, I got reached out to, like, I think in July or something, by Drew Larona. And he wanted to introduce me to Lori Chandro, who was, and I would later find out that we met in like August of that year. And her husband had passed away a couple years before that in a plane crash. And she had some money set aside that essentially from from my vantage point, at least, she was looking to do something meaningful with. And she was a music fan, and she had kind of, Drew and her had crafted this, they had worked on a business plan. They're like, yeah, let's open a music venue so more artists that we want to see will come here, right? And so, anyways, but then they started reaching out to agents, and agents were like, you might want to meet someone who knows anything about the music scene. It's like, like I think agents get those calls all the time, like someone that's very green, good intentions. So anyways, they started asking around, and a few different lines pointed to me. So Drew reached out and set up a meeting with Lori and I. And when I met with her, she's like, will you help us set up a few shows? We want to kind of figure out how this goes. And I was like, I'm do it all the time. That sounds fun, And then we met again a week later, and I had been in conversations with, did you ever know Matt Jones? He was friends with Matt Jones, Matt Dowley, and some other friends. So simultaneously in a parallel universe, when Drew and Lori were working on that, I'd been talking to some friends, because I played South by Southwest in 2010, where it was like the only Boise, or the only Idaho band there. And so I was working on this Boise showcase, but then I'd played CMJ, we're on a label out of Portland. I was playing all these things, and UMS Underground Music Showcase in Denver, another multi-venue festival. We were like, Boise, it'd be a great spot for something like that. Yeah. But like, we were artist kids with no money. Right. And so the collision of Lori and I meeting each other, so I followed up with her initial question of helping us a few shows. A week later, we met again, and I was like, what about this little festival idea? And I pitched it as 60 bands over 3 days. Yeah. And then they got back to me like, sure, that sounds like a fun project. So that was kind of the collision. And at that point, Megan Stahl, one of the other co-founders, had been coming to my band Finn Riggins shows, and I started the Neurolux like a week later, and she was unemployed, and she was out of the corporate marketing world. And I was like, hey, I think we're gonna start a music festival. You want to help? Yeah. So she jumped on, and then there was like this groundswell of people there was some new optimism in the scene at that point, but there was a bunch of people.
there's some folks that have been running this thing called Go Listen Boise. So Steph Coyle was involved in that, and a few others. And so anyways, there was a bunch, and I was working at Pi-hole at the time. So I was pretty aware of the community and just sort of started inviting others like, hey, do you want to, and so the cool thing about, I think, the foundation of Treefort is I was kind of the only music guy that had experience doing that. I hit up an old friend who was in Oregon at the time, she was the only one that had like festival experience. So she kind of helped me with some of the organization stuff. But then everybody else were just like, they were just learning on the fly and just excited, right? And so then it was quickly a community project. So like there was a core of us that were starting to meet on the weekly, but we really didn't get going until October 2011. So the fact we pulled off that first festival in 6 months is kind of wild. But I don't know, it was like I come out of this world where like we were setting up our own shows all the time. Like just, it felt like just setting up a slightly bigger show, And so, but then there was like outpouring of volunteers came out, and it was like, it suddenly got a life of its own. That year Youth Lagoon played the launch party, and that was right when Youth Lagoon was really starting to hit nationally. So there was like kind of this cool wave of energy at the time. So anyways, that's kind of the long, but I had set up similar types of events. I was running this thing called Ranch Fest with my band and other friends. It was like a DIY like barn party festival up in Fairfield. So, and then we at that point we were already a couple of days with like 30 bands. So I was sort of used to this dealing with the volume of coordination, I guess. And so
that's something I've really never done. I was like just curious about, I mean, like like logistically you have to have so many people at some level. And I mean, I assume you're very creative. And as a creative, it's so hard for me to do logistics, so it's like at some point I'm like, I gotta find a logistical partner or somebody to help me with like structure and
this has made me just get heady, but I feel like organizing music, there's this organization to it. I come out, like I loved math and I was always good at math. So I do have some of that in me too. In fact, the creative side of me, I think was a newer side of me than some of the just like the logistics side. Like I was used to being that person around my friend group, and so, but this is also, and this may sound dorky, but I believe it is like, the festival too, like I always say this, like I would much rather be in a band with people I can like I want to be around and that they want to try hard than are the most talented people around, right? Like I think we'll make better music. And so the nature of the organization of Treefort was kind of built for me, like retrospectively looking at it as like just kind of a band, like a kind of a band of bandits, just like a bunch of folks just caring about stuff. So I think there are different skill sets of logistics, but I think one skill set I am pretty good at, I guess, kind of helping people stay organized. Even though I don't know, I'm not a note taker. I'm not really good on other fronts, but
man, I am the least organized. For some reason, I like when I was a kid, I used to keep my bedroom really neat and stuff. And I have lost all sense of that. And I mean, I'll get it. I'll get like my, my podcast studio in order like a week, and then all of a sudden within a month it's just cluttered and stuff. I have no organization.
I'll say that like I have organization skill sets, but really once again I think some of the success of Treefort is like it was a diverse group of people in skill sets and backgrounds. Like Lori's like a health insurance person, Drew was an MBA student, I was a music person, and everybody kind of fit into where they needed to at the team and made it better. All of us have different skills, right? And like this girl, old friend Jenny Rose that I brought on, she was the organized one. Like she's like a top-notch like private assistant, or like executive assistant, but had been working in the music festival world. So she created a lot of the tools we use now for like organizing 500 bands and stuff like that. So I'm not that person. So I don't want to take credit for that. Yes, exactly. So yes. So anyways.
So then you like, I mean, did you just see steady growth over time, or I mean, did you see some like swings up and down through the years?
Yeah, it's been steadily growing, but there's definitely been bumps in the road, like because it's been a very tiny margin of error financially for lots of years, right? And so, even like last year was super cold. Like once again, we deal with externalities that kind of affect it, but it's been slow growth by design too. That's one reason we haven't been trying to chase the biggest headliners in the world. And like, we want it to be just like a healthy, slow growth thing. But at the same time, it is huge. The organization itself is crazy. Like, it scales up to 500 volunteers and 100+ people that are contractors working on it, plus security. And I mean, it's crazy the scale of it. Yeah. But at the same time, yeah. So but this also goes back to where we started too. Like, there was no like master plan. We just tried to do one, and there was like, oh, and then we just kind of kismet and like a bunch of things. It was really amazing that first year, and now we got to do it again, and it's been sort of just following that. And then during the pandemic, it sort of allowed us to take. I mean, it was challenging for one, but once again, just kind of rolling with the punches and a positive like outlook on it. We took the time to rethink like our organization. And where, if we're going to come back, like, what is coming back look like that's going to inspire everyone to, because at that point we were hitting kind of, we were like a startup that was still just like very scrappy, but very small team that was making anywhere close to a full-time living on it. Right. Which is really hard to sustain. So yeah, if everybody has a side job or a full job and the side job. So basically during the pandemic, we rethought, like I said, we worked through our systems a bit, and then also just came, talked to the developer that helped us develop Treefort Music Hall, and end up figuring out a way to take on some other investors, and just kind of decided to, well, if we can build a more of an ecosystem for ourselves year round, that could help us sustain a team and actually meet some of the goals we've been trying to get to, which is really like strengthen this music scene and really make it a stop for a lot of different talent. And back to where we're talking about, it was like, now, especially with all ages venues, there was just still these big gaps in the venue ecosystem, right? And so like what happened last year, especially with, as much as Treefort Music Hall, huge fan of, I think it's accomplishing a lot, but really like Shrine Basements, like a 250 cap, all ages space, like, and then not only outside of what we're doing, like Realms and a few others, like we need small all ages spaces for the scene to really develop. Yeah. So there's been a lot of things falling into place like in the last year. I think feel like it's been 10 years of us kind of pushing and encouraging the scene to get there, right, and doing our part. But I love seeing so many other people contributing to it now too, right? Yeah. That's what it takes. I feel like you were saying like when you guys started and like the timing of, because I remember we played the venue a couple times. Oh yeah. But I feel like the timing wasn't there, and so they were just struggling to stay open. I mean, yeah, like there was all ages bands and whatever, but like there wasn't enough money and enough excitement or whatever. I don't know exactly what it was, but yeah, and I think it felt a little more fractured at the time too. I do think it was a timing thing for sure, but the venue played a pretty, especially retrospectively, a pretty important role in a lot of young people's lives at the time. I mean, Trevor from Youth Lagoon and Ukiah and all these, like a lot of people that are Logan Hyde, and like there's a lot of like talented musicians to see now that cut their teeth at that venue, right? And like, yeah, man. When I was talking to Ukiah, I finally we were talking before here, but I hadn't seen him in a couple of years. Well, I saw him at Treefort last year, but just briefly. But I hadn't like got to hang out with him for quite a few years, and so he was playing DJing up at Hap, and so Jeremy texted me, like, "You guys here?" I'm like, "I'm there." So I went down and was checking, listened to him, but we talked for a little while, and it was just interesting because he was talking about just some old stuff growing up, and it's like, man, when you guys talk about this, it makes me so jealous I didn't grow up here, because like I grew up in a tiny town. It wasn't going on. I mean, like I played in church worship like group, and that was about it. But to like see like so many kids just play, and then the city grew and like the excitement grew, and you see all those kids like stuck with it or like doing some cool shit, cool stuff. And I think that's even now it's like even expand, like it's just like the young scene in this town right now is really vibrant, and the bands are just getting better and better, So that was that wave, but like the new wave of kids, and especially like Boise Rock School started about when we started. And so now, I don't know how familiar you are with that program, but I have a 10-year-old daughter and she's in it, and I know those guys pretty well. But so many of the young bands coming up now also have that level of education where they've been able to nurture like learning how to play in a band together with other kids and like write music. And so you can just see the overall, just like the talent level just continuing to rise here, which is pretty exciting. Have you ever heard of the 10,000 hour rule? Yes, but reiterate it?
It's like I don't know who came up with it, but there's a book by Malcolm Gladwell, and he talks a lot about it. But he's like, every successful or professional person has probably put in 10,000 hours. It's kind of like it's probably not, has to be 10,000, but so he tells the story of like the Beatles, and it seems like they just came, from nowhere across to America, but they were actually playing in some strip club for like 8 hours a night, or for like 2 or 3 years. And then when they finally crossed the sea, they were just so tight, and he talks about other like artists and basketball players. And so, when you see like a prodigy, say like LeBron James, and you're like, oh shit, he's already in the NBA, like how,
Yeah.
but he's like, he's been playing since 7 for 4 hours a day, and, calculated. And so if you're going to do something really great, it's like, oh yeah, you start playing early, you start playing a lot, you start playing in bands, you just keep going,
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think back to like the expansion of the venue ecosystem here in the last year, like what I've been seeing is like the bands that were already a little more established and better are now, playing Treefort Music Hall. And like, the Knit's been there for a long time, and they've like, you got to play there, but if it's the only one, and, they have a different approach to locals and stuff, and it has been kind of a hard nut for a lot of locals to crack, if they've even wanted to. But now it's all of a sudden you see then the smaller venues, there's more space for somebody else to, you just see like to your point about the time, like there's now more opportunities and there's more rooms that need filled, so that's creating like the demand for bands. And it's like, yeah, it's cool. Like just seeing it like really pick up steam recently. And then for me, I've been loving seeing local bands. You got to play at Treefort Music Hall recently, like, like you were saying, like the lights and the sound, it just like instantly levels them up.
Yeah.
And it's good practice too, to know how to play on a bigger stage like that too. Cause it's a different approach. Like,
it is. I mean,
I love house shows, but that's a way that you're going to get so much direct feedback when you're on a big stage. There's like, it's just different, but it's awesome.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Like we played one of our earlier ones we played when this might've been the second or third show I think it's the first show with Brock. Do you know Brock Bartel?
Yeah.
So he used to play with us, and he was after Ukiah. And so, but Ukiah knew some friends, and this was still when he was in school at BSU, and he was in some frat. And we played at this house at Lincoln, and I mean, we could barely squeeze in 100 people. We pushed out this window, and it's just like,
it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we could have everyone played the wrong notes, and it still would have been like,
Exactly.
So it's really like fun and easy. But then you go to like, then you're like, oh, I got to get on my shit, and like, how do I get energy up, and filling people out, etc.
Which I just love that, like, as far as if we look at like training grounds for like local bands, for them to get that experience and maybe work through the kinks. And I know like our tech team here is like super friendly and supportive, and it's like sometimes people that haven't even played with monitors before, and instead of like being assholes and ridiculing them for being dumb, it's like, oh, well, this is how monitor work. It's like coaching people up and stuff. It's like, because you got to learn somewhere. It's like, So,
are you guys still? Do you guys still book at some of the other venues like Neurolux or Olympic or?
So at the end of this summer, we pulled out. I had, since the Olympic opened, I think 2016. Like I helped them kind of develop that whole place, and had been in-house booking that place. But as we opened the shrine and everything else, and we decided to let that go at the end of last summer. Okay. But we are still with the owner at Neurolux helping book there. Yeah. And then, between the 2 floors at Shrine and here at Music Hall, those are kind of the main rooms that we're sort of like helping manage the calendar. Yeah. But we still take shows to like the Shredder, Visual Arts Collective. Sure. And then we've been doing shows at the Olympic. We haven't done one in a while. So, but we've historically done shows at the Reef, and we help with other outdoor stuff. So we still like doing all those other things. But
the Reef, did they just stop doing music altogether and now they're just restarting?
Yeah, they pretty much, and I guess I knew they weren't really doing music for a long time.
Yeah.
So, like and I know did you see that they just announced they're bringing it back? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I guess for me, I didn't even know they made a conscious decision to stop.
Right.
Just,
me neither. I just I assumed they were.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I didn't see anything,
Same. Yeah. So
what is about like some of the venues that open up for Treefort that aren't normally open? For example, Edelman Like, do they just do other events?
Yeah, they're like private event spaces.
Okay, so then you just like they open them up for Treefort. Yeah, because there's a couple, and I'm like, oh shit, I didn't know this space existed.
Exactly.
Adaman upstairs was one of them because
it's cool.
Last year when we were there, that was more like a lot of electronic stuff, and I was just like, oh, I've been to Press and Pony and some of the other spots, but I'd never been up there. I was like, what?
Those are cool, and that's why for us, like taking over the Shrine, because we've been using that since 2013. Mostly just for the festival, and we've done some one-off stuff, but it kind of labor intensive to bring stuff in. So it's been fun to now take that space and make it a more permanent music space.
Dude, speaking of that place, Haley showed me this picture.
Oh, you saw
it? Of the ghost
or
whatever.
Yes,
Dude,
crazy.
That's nuts. But of course, if it's an old enough building, there has to be ghosts. So
totally.
I don't know if I'm a ghost guy or not, but she showed me the picture. I was like, I don't know how to explain this one.
Totally.
I was like, I don't think they had long exposure of photography back then. I mean, I could be wrong, but
especially because the rest of it's not. It's
right.
clear,
Everyone else is there, and then there's just this.
It's crazy.
There's like a half man on this. What is it, like 1920s photo or something?
I think it's 1950s, but it just looks like that. I know, it's so funny. We were on a ghost mission and we found one in a photograph, which was like, that's actually an interesting place to find one.
Yeah. I'm not really good friends, but I'm like acquaintances with Brando, who so he does a lot of booking through some electronic stuff and through you, I guess. But yeah, it's interesting to watch. I've been to the festival that he works or helps with, Connection, and to see like not the differences, but you'll see like I mean that festival has to be growing somewhat, but they've been around for like they've had like I don't know 10 or 11 years as well, but then they'll like kind of shrink and then they'll grow a little bit again. So to see like Treefort kind of steady growth and stuff, I don't.
Speaking of Brando, and I think and Sam, he does Connection, and one of the fun things we've been having, and as part of a kind of a core a little bit too with the spaces, is now like being in a position to better nurture other promoters and stuff, folks that want to do their own E events. And I think sometimes maybe a misconception about us might be that we just want to control everything and book all the events, but that's actually not true. We just kind of wanted to we've just been pushing so hard to create the space for this music scene to
I would imagine if you wanted to control things, you wouldn't allow ravers. So.
Yeah, exactly. But it's, I don't want to overuse the word, but I really think from the ecosystem model and we need all these things to for the energy to move, and we need lots of people putting energy into it and not just, it's like, we want to promote what we're excited about. We want others to promote what they're excited about too, Yeah. So even our approach to the festival has always been, we've always worked with other promoters or people part of different niches. And it's been kind of, as opposed to us being like, here, we're going to program everything, I don't know. It's been part of our approach from a community mindset, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like depending on who I've talked to in the past, I'll be like, if you talk to somebody in hip hop, they're like, oh, there's just not a vein for this, or like hardcore. Like sometimes I'll talk like, oh yeah, the hardcore scene's really booming, but I mean, if I were to think about going to a hardcore show, I'd be like, yeah, the Shredders are gay, and that's about it. But maybe as it grows, there's some more spots, And
that's an example. Like we've been hosting hardcore stuff, but like Underdogs and Boise Hardcore, that's kind of they specialize in that and they know that, so they do a lot of stuff at the Shredder, but then they go other places and stuff. But
and I know nothing about that genre.
Yeah, totally. And then the hip hop scene, I agree, is all those need champions. But I do think what I've been hearing, because we've been working with a bunch of these folks, a lot of those folks were just hitting dead ends for a while in Boise. There just wasn't enough space or venues that wanted to host some of that stuff.
Right. But we're definitely not going to allow country, though, right?
Definitely not.
Okay. Yeah, I would assume. No Nickelback.
No pop country, at least. No, there's got to be space for that too.
No,
I like a lot of the country stuff. I know, but I want to be careful if you're recording this.
Dude, being a muso for so long, it's like, because I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania, and everyone I knew listened to country. And for some reason, I hated it even back then. And then I moved to Alabama, and I'm playing rock and roll. I'm just like, fuck country. And nowadays, everyone loves country, and I think I just have it ingrained in me. I'm like, I'm not allowed. I will never allow myself to like country. Even if I start to think I like a song, I'm like, no, turn it off. I don't like it.
Can't allow it.
Yeah.
No,
I don't know if that's true or not, but
yeah, it's funny. I grew up with a lot of country music too, and I like the country that I like, but I don't like all of it.
Yes.
I mean, like with any music, like, I don't know, I just get the more commercial side of it. For me, the glossy side of it loses my interest. And
sure.
And not to say that stuff's not authentic, but it comes across to me as less authentic.
Yeah, I always got annoyed with, I mean, I guess this isn't a rule that fits across the board, but I always got annoyed with like, oh, they picked a star, and then there's a ton of writers. Of course they wrote like the number one hit, but I guess a lot of pop does that too, and I'm a sucker for pop.
Exactly.
So you like, I don't know, it's just like rules of one genre, not another. But most of my musician friends always hated on me because I'm such a sucker for pop.
That's cool.
And I'm like, dude, did you hear this new Britney song?
Nice.
Like, Josh,
nice.
We're trying to play rock and roll.
Yes, I love it. It's nice having a 10-year-old daughter. I get to, I get permission to go to kids' movies, and I get permission to listen to pop music. It's great.
Man, some of the artists that have made it, I don't know, you'd have to be 20 to 30 years that are still making hits that that go to that 12-year-old, and you're like, I was listening to this when I was 16 or whatever.
Yeah.
That's somehow impressive. And like, I'm like, I don't know if you're so generic or so talented. I'm not sure which, but that, you have like a parent and a kid. They both go to the show, and they're both like, this is awesome.
Yes. It's fun with pop music too. I was just thinking of a few examples where, it's classic. Like, I liked them before they were famous, and it's funny how that affects, things. But because like I like pop music, like like hooks and stuff like that, But I also like just weird psychedelic music. So
yeah, man, we just went to not just, but the last show I went to the VAC was Matt Hopper.
Nice.
And one of the other artists was I forget the name of the band, but the guy who plays bass, his name's Creed. And he was roommates with my girlfriend Cinda. But they're like psychedelic rock. And they're dope, but I'd never
Hand
seen
Trembler,
them.
probably. Was it Hand Trembler?
Hand Trembler.
Yeah.
It was funny because Cinda was saying about she was like, when I was living with them, I used to see them practice all the time. And she's like, I don't really understand the name. She's like, do you have some sort of disorder? He's like, no, it's because I'm an alcoholic.
Interesting.
And I knew exactly, because I was like, I've worked at bars for 15 years. I'm like, I see the guy who's just like,
yeah, that's funny. I never thought of that.
Yeah. We used to make fun of this one kid. He would, I won't name him, but he would come into work, and he would just like hold like a beer over, and some of the other guys are like, yeah, I'll have a martini, shaking. Because they just like shake it the whole way over.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I mean, and to be fair, I've been on benders and I've been there where I'm like, I need a drink.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I have never been into psychedelic rock that much, but of course, I've been discovering, like, I've never been into electronic that much until the last couple of years, and then got invited to Connection, and as I like dive into it, I'm like, I was one of those guys who, when DJs first came on, at least more popular, I pushed back against it so hard, because I was just like,
same. Yep.
We played it, we practiced, we performed live, and, but I've come to understand, like, they do,
the production side of it is they do a lot.
Ton of stuff,
And, like with anybody, some a lot more than others. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, you still have some that don't do a lot live, but then the production value is so good.
Yeah, for sure.
They're pretty fun, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool.
Man, I was trying to think of what else. Oh, so this year, are you guys? Is it the 23rd?
20th. It's 20th to the 24th.
Okay.
So 2024.
So I was telling you, I still got to talk to Jeremy, because I think he said he was playing.
Yep.
I'll be in Scottsdale, so I'm like, let me see if I can get.
So the 23rd is the Saturday. So yeah, maybe you can come home for Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah. Well, and I was like, well, I have to. If I come up, I'm gonna have to plan like a day or two before so I can practice. But because I'm the least important musician, because they were playing without a keyboard player for a while, so then I was just an addition.
Yeah.
So we did this at Flipside. There was like one song I just didn't really know. I just like turned my thing down. I'm just like, yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
But So now I might have to do that if I come up. Yeah. Dude, thank you, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I just want to do this and like pick your brain a little bit. And
yeah, I was thinking one thing to add, just like I was thinking as you were talking about that, and also bands like Matt Hopper, you know, like for me, he's like pop music in a lot of ways. He writes great hooky songs, but I think one thing I think at the core of what we're doing and with the festival and in general is I just like more people being involved in the music scene and playing. Like you and I are both kind of casual folks, like on stage now, but like that's a healthy part of our lives too. And it's a cool way to connect with folks and to be part of a community. And I also just like creating more space for people to just hear music from people that aren't. Most people buy tickets to go see people that are famous, right? That's like why they buy a ticket. Sure. But I think to just go and experience music and just like the environment around it, I love the experience of live music where you can kind of, there's permission to not talk to anybody, but you get to be around a lot of people, you know? And like, sure. I think during the pandemic, I really saw the starkness of, you know, for me, and there was a lot of things we were missing. There was a lot of benefits to it too, but like that just getting together, the casual ability to reconnect with your neighbor, as opposed to just like yelling at each other on the internet. You know, it's like I just think the soft diplomacy of gathering in live music spaces, I just love it. I've loved it since I first discovered it, and so it's just fun to create that world, I guess. Yeah. And then to encourage people. One thing I love, every time I hear from artists around Treefort, they went and they saw their friends were playing. They're like, wait a minute, I can do that too, and just like being encouraged, you know, more than anything. Yeah. So.
There's there's been quite a few. So I used to work at this bar out on 10 Mile and McMillan called Rudy's. Do you know it?
No.
I never heard of it when I worked downtown. Like I used to work at P.F. Chang, so I was like Bodo guy, and the only reason I went to Bodo now was for sushi spot.
Yep.
Which is like my favorite. But anyway, I had been working in solar for a while, and I was going back into bars, and my friend was like, "You should work out at Rudy's." I was like, "I don't even know where that is." They're like, "Yeah, 10 Mile." And I was like, "Aren't there's farms out there?" They're like, "It's been developed." But so then I've been there 4 years, but it's just a very different crowd. Like, I mean, there's a lot of Cali transplants, but still a lot of like construction workers and, you know, all that kind of area out there. But to start hearing people be like, "Oh yeah, we're going to Treefort," and I was like, I would have never assumed that you guys would be going to Treefort. Yeah, like, it was just a very different, you know. And so to hear, like, when you start hearing other like people that I wouldn't have expected that 5 years ago, and now to see these people like get excited about Treefort, like, "Oh yeah, like this art, you know, and we went down for this." And
that's awesome.
And then like hearing like, so I have this group, I call them the Mexicans, but so like all of my Mexican friends who I would have never expected to be down here. And then like 3 or 4 times I've been hanging out with them. They're like, "We're going to the Treefort Hall." And I'm like,
"That's awesome.
Wait, what?"
That's great.
And they're like, "Yeah, it's reggaeton." And I was like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah.
So
I love that.
It's really cool to see like it's just bringing in a lot of different communities and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I love it. It's so fun.
And then speaking of what you said about like people go to see famous people, but you've had a few people that have
become famous.
Yeah, I mean, so, like I remember Lizzo,
yeah,
and I remember the rap group that
Run the Jewels.
Yeah, Run the Jewels.
Yeah.
And I don't know any other like big ones, but I wasn't there for the Lizzo one, but I heard about her, and I was like, I don't really know what that is. And then you see them 5 years later, and you're like, what?
Yeah, and I love that. Obviously, it's cool that happened, but the cool thing to me. And like you will enjoy seeing them if you just realize that you have to start somewhere,
and you might as well.
Yeah.
You might as well enjoy them, you know.
Yeah.
When you can still afford the tickets.
Exactly. So it's been fun, and to your point of your friends out there, is like, I love I think one of the things I'm most proud of with Treefort is it has shifted people that may not have ever bought a ticket to go see bands they hadn't heard of.
Yeah.
They're now willing to do that and are realizing that they're rewarded for it too. They're like, I found a bunch of cool new bands, like cool new music, and it's just a new place for them to find talent, which is good for the talent, good for them, and it's cool.
Yeah, I think I like that a lot about the festival, because I mean, even as somebody who has been a local musician, sometimes I will hear of just some random local show and I'm like, they're probably going to be shitty. I don't want to go. But like when you go to like a festival, you're like, oh, there's going to be like at least a level of, you know, they played a little bit and they've got their shit together.
Totally. Yeah.
And that's pretty dope.
And then how it functions with the local scene to that point is like all the locals know they're now playing on a national stage, so they'll like work harder, get your shit together. They'll go record, and that's one of the things I think the festivals function too. Even like the submission process has, you know, bands like, oh, I need a bio, I need a photo. It just kind of like helps them get their professional side together. But the locals that get the most out of the festival also rehearse for it, maybe try to do something special, because I think it gets too easy to just go play your gig, you know, and not like try very hard. But it kind of like pushes people to like, it's a moment in time once a year where they're like, oh, we got to bring our A game. So their A game gets better every year. You know? That's true. So
and then I mean, if they're then you're also, now you're still at the bottom, even though you're at this big spot. You're like, okay, so I need people to be like, I want to perform my best, because I'm like in that healthy competition, competing with all these other bigger artists that are at other venues. So like, what are we gonna do? Like, how are we gonna pull out all the stops?
And it's cool, like the locals have home field advantage. Like they can bring in like a sax player that there's their friend, you know, other people are traveling. Like I think the locals realize that. And then I just love that it also functions in contextualizing our local scene on a national stage, and it turns out our local bands are pretty good. You know, it's like, but when we were like just isolated, you know, it's easy to be like, you know, and it's good for the national scene to get, anyways. That's kind of how I think it functions in a lot of ways. And I like it when the locals try hard. It's good. Well, it's good for them, you know. It's like I mean, it's like having a deadline, you know. It's like forces us all to get it done.
Yeah, man. I think deadlines they're my nemesis, but they're needed.
Totally. Exactly.
If I don't have a deadline, I won't get you done.
Exactly. Speaking of which, I got the Treefort schedule done by tomorrow, so I'm feeling the heat. But I was like, you know what? I'll take a break and have a conversation with you.
do you do this thing where I take on too much, and part of me think that's really good, because then it lights a fire under my ass. But then the other part of me, when I get under those crunches, I'm like, what the fuck did I just do?
Totally.
And I mean, like to my personal shit is like, so I have the stuff that pays the bills is, you know, like a video project and a photo project, and I haven't released a podcast in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and I'm like, god damn it. So I'm like, my shit will get put on the back burner because I like took on too many projects. I still haven't figured out how to manage all this, but
I mean, for me it's just you got to keep swimming.
I mean, I just ate up an hour of your time, and
it's good. It's all good.
Well, yeah, man. I won't take up any more of your time.
That's good. Thanks.
I don't know if you need to plug anything. No. I mean, the festival, but everybody knows that.
But. That's fun. Appreciate the conversation.
Do you have any new exciting things that you're allowed to tell for this year
about the festival?
Yeah. Like, you're not opening up like another hall.
We're not. No, in fact, this year, if anything,
if you were.
It was. If anything, we're kind of, you know, we're paring back slightly. Where, you know, it's a year we're not going to do any, like, for a few different reasons, things too far out of bounds. But it's been fun. I think we're pretty well known for activating weird spaces and stuff. But this year, I think we're going to focus on what's here. I am excited. We're going to use the Morrison Center for the first time. So on the Saturday night, we're doing this guy Patrick Watson. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's from Montreal, and he's pretty well known as particularly in more of the performing arts center spaces. And he's done a lot of soundtrack type stuff. But he's going to perform with the Boise Philharmonic there, and then I think like Ballet Idaho and LED and a few other dance companies are going to be involved somehow. So that's kind of a new project, especially with Main Stage being right across the river from Morrison Center. Probably gives us the opportunity to use that. So I think that's intriguing. There's going to be a roller derby Grand Prix like race in the and we're still finalizing it, but I think, but in the Main Street's bus station that we just toured this, it's on Sunday, which I think will be a unique. Yeah. Like, have you been down there?
No.
I just went down. It's like a subway almost, but you go down. There's like an island, and then there's like a bus track that goes all the way around. They don't run the buses on Sunday, so they actually were like, hey, you want to do like a roller disco down here?
Well, didn't last year didn't you play at the old bus station, or didn't they?
So then this is probably going to be confusing for people this year. So now the actual bus station, we're going to do something. Right. But the Greyhound bus station, the old Greyhound bus station, we activated that last year. Yeah. But now this new organization called Idaho Film Society. Have you heard of them? Mm-hmm. They're actually using it as a cool film hub now. Okay. So there will be some film stuff over there. But that's a good example. We're not going to build a stage in that parking lot and do what we did last year. So anyways.
The one thing I just saw was I guess there's something happened with the historical district, like where Space Bar is and their liquor license. So they're going to have to figure that out or something. I remember last year they had just got their doors open. Yeah, for barely. New spot. Like we know them well. They're great. We were both on the same timeline. Yeah, it's like, just like we barely get. Yeah, exactly. I know that's a whole nother conversation. Just like the liquor laws here are just really challenging for small businesses. And Will at Space Bar and his partner, I forget his name right now, have been really vocal about it and really like it's important because of in order to obtain a liquor license, like either. Will and I have talked about this, like you're either like old money or you're new money coming to town, but there's not a lot of room for like young entrepreneurs here because the barrier to entry is so high, which is really anti-business. It sucks because, that's one thing. You go over to Portland, Oregon, and granted they have a few different rules themselves, but it's a lot easier to obtain a liquor license. So that thus you see a lot more like food and beverage places and venues be able to open up and people can take chances. But so like if you think of the entrepreneurial like ecosystem around hospitality, right, a liquor license is pretty make or break to your ability to pay the bills. You know? I had seen something about it because I'd heard a lot about his struggles with that stuff, and then I've been in food and beverage for 15 years, and then I had other roommates just involved, and it's like that old money, or it's like the bars that already have the money. They're going to do everything they can to own the ones and then just hold that control over, like, oh yeah, I'll rent it to you for whatever. Exactly. But it does seem, I guess, a little bit arcane, and I didn't know if that was like the more religious nature of Idaho or the conservative side. But
I think maybe at one point, but now I agree with you. I think it's a little bit more like those that have.
Yeah, like we don't want more bars competing. Yeah. And somebody was comparing it to some other, like a hunting license or something, but they're just like, or a driving license, where it's just like, why would you make somebody pay $5,000 to do something that is very standard? Yes, there should be rules. If you serve an underage, you get revoked, etc. Yeah. But like, why is there this barrier of entry?
Yeah, exactly.
It's very, very strange.
Yeah, they're just because they actually are not that expensive. Just when they like from the state, but because they're limited, it creates like this like secondary market. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I had heard stories of people just like putting their name in a lot, paying that little bit, and then they get it. There was some bar that opened on Vista for a year because then you had to open.
You have to put it somewhere. And then he's
like, oh, and then I could sell it for $300K.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know that much about it, but it seems
that's the general. Yeah. Well, then they passed a new legislation on it last year that I think over time, my read on it, I think it will essentially fix it, but in the near term, it kind of just fucked it all up. Yeah. It made it even worse in some ways.
Yeah. I had just seen Spacebar post about it.
Yeah, it was cool.
My friend Julie works for them, so I know that was when I'd been going to the old one for a long time, and I was like, ooh, this is going to be a game changer for them when they got their liquor license, so hopefully they'll get it figured out by then, or just as soon as possible for them, because I'm sure it's a huge
totally.
The whole canned cocktails and all that stuff seems to have helped a little with.
It does help, yeah.
So like I go to Sturman's a lot, which is a cigar lounge, and
cool.
It's nice to go to bars where you can get liquor, but then if you're not, if you're at a beer and wine spot, you're like, oh, I can still get a Moscow Mule or something. So whenever that shifted, I don't know those laws, but that seemed to help a little.
It does help, yeah.
But
there's some,
Anyway,
it's good.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate coming
good
on.
Stuff, yeah.
Nobody.